We are back with part two, now with lowered expectations of Copilot. And to have it write A to Z list descriptions on the plus side, this will be a really short review of how we managed to get it to do, like I said, with lowered expectations, decent amounts, which I then cross-referenced with my own descriptions and edited my own descriptions accordingly in both the spreadsheet I mentioned maintaining before and also the actual, software. So in this one, I went and I got the spreadsheet that it created from the first round that had the cleaned up information of the database name in column G, because I'm like, well, at least we did that bit of data cleaning, so that should be helpful, but as you'll see in a second, I'm not quite certain it's using it or not. So I gave it that spreadsheet and I wrote the following prompt. I need your help to write resource descriptions for databases. Here's an Excel spreadsheet. Use the names in column G, which I just mentioned are the data cleaned ones that didn't have the vendor name parentheses next to them, which again, I may be able to strip out now that we have vendor drop downs. But at one point, people really like those. So use the names in column G to search the internet. If there is no text in column G, skip to the next cell where there is text. Because like I mentioned in the other one, I have like a separate column of how the assets in one software map to the collections in our library management system because they don't always have the same name. So that's one of the reasons why we have so many blank rows all the way on the end in column G. So yeah, please start with Empire Online because I already did the first so many. The other video on row 70 to make sure that we were precise, and search for it and the next 9 entries, writing short summaries into chat as you go. Include in each summary number of publications in the database because that's normally the number I'm looking to update. And what kind they are. Are they articles? Are they journals? Are they other stuff? If available, include the number of articles indexed in addition to the full text articles. This is where it tripped up a lot, but we'll get to that in a second. Do not include more than 5 topics or subjects and keep each description between 2 to 5 sentences. Yeah, I try not to go more than 3. And they're getting shorter as I get older because it's like, who's reading these? Anyone? Anyone? Include a link to your top source below each summary, and as you'll see, the source, I don't know if it's the only source it's pulling from, because it was finding things that I had to spend time cross-checking, and sort of had to take its word on it. But a lot of the sources it's pulling are just the vendor platform, publicly available promotional materials. So and like I said, I told it to use the column G, which wouldn't have this on it, but it's still back out when it generates the description. So I don't know if it's using that column G to search or not. And this one, Encyclopedia of Associations, is one of the ones that caused me significant rewriting because I don't know why I never put it into my head that they were all nonprofit associations. I thought they were just associations. Profit, not profit. Who minds it? And then it also grabbed stuff I didn't need to grab, so we'll see in a minute how we kind of dealt with that. So, yep, continue with the next 10. Like I said, this is going to be kind of boring. I'm just trying to remember which of these I want to talk about in detail. Oh, so one of these, I mentioned a lot of these sources are going to be the vendor pages. Because the Grand Rapids Press is a news bank, they actually found the Grand Rapids Public Library is the best source of information. Unfortunately, this forced me to like double check what our coverage was for Grand Rapids Press because we only go back to the turn of this century. So yeah, we don't go back to 1893. The Grand Rapids Public Library does because they obviously have much more invested in the Grand Rapids Press than we do. So there were a couple times when it's like finding generic information. I'm like, wait, is our coverage match that? So yeah, continue with the next 10. Yeah, see this one on Harper's Weekly was super long, and I've condensed into like one whole sentence. Although my sentences have been described as Faulknerian, so I've been trying later and later in life to not write 3 concepts, 4 concepts into a sentence, even if the grammar will support it. And in this case, it also like appends this Gale 1 file, and the ones we have in column A would just be Gale. So it wouldn't have that 1 file after it, so kind of like, what are you doing? But not particularly hung up on that. See, it would just be like health and wellness, Gale. Consumer edition, high and line. Homeland Security Digital Library changed a bit from what I had in there. And it likes to say humanities as opposed to the humanities. That was the only thing that was tripping me up because I've only ever heard it phrased as the humanities, not humanities, subjects of humanities. JSTOR revealed digital, pharmaceutical abstracts. And that's one thing to mention. It had a hard time finding um, citation amounts, although if they were there, especially on the EBSCO pages at the bottom, it would give you them. A lot of this, a lot of extra time I spent on this was fact checking that there wasn't any or there wasn't information readily available about the number of citations. So a lot of things I had that were EBSCO databases in particular that said like it had X number of citations. The last time I did my A to Z list descriptions, I discovered a lot of them have just switched to being completely full text. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, now you're just full text. And I have a couple actually tagged that I need to talk to my coworker about because I'm like, this says it's abstracting, but it's just full text now. Are we okay with that? Or are we okay with this being just abstracts where, sometimes you go in the other direction. Anyway. I also tried to drop a lot of this coverage that goes back to whenever because I had these in my descriptions. And if anyone wants to give me some feedback on whether or not their researchers find it useful, I don't think ours notice. I hate to say that. I know they notice like size and subjects, but I don't know if they really look at whatchamacallit, I just had brain fart. What were we looking at up there? Oh yeah, the coverage dates. Unless it goes back super far, but I don't know. I work in a college where like the current stuff is what we're looking for anyway. Market share reporter came out a bit better. Okay, next entries. As you can see, this is not terribly exciting. And this actually, the Michigan news sources was like completely spot on. So we have that, and that's correct from MLive Archives, surprisingly, is the source, but this is correct. This metadata is correct. Military intelligence, my tracking. This is also correct, so but it does come from like the my tracking source. And this one, this criminal justice reference service is one of the ones I had to flag. So I'm like, well, now it's completely different. We'll just say that it's completely different. I forget how, so I'm just freeballing here. And then you can see a couple of these where I'm like, please skip down to Gale, like News Gale 1 file. In this case, it's because we have New York Times. I really didn't want to get into all that because it's like, no, we have specific ways of accessing things, so you don't need to do it all the time. Da, da, da. National Technical Reports Library. And then we have some like this, where I'm just never going to change my super exciting description for this because although I mention the coverage on it, most of like the emphasis I place on the description, because this is something I have to share with my students, is how to actually get and use this database because Nerdle's not the most friendly, in my opinion, because you have to search on the right side, but there's this really tempting filter bar where you can put search terms in the center. And yeah, a lot of that's like instructions like, don't be tempted into going over there because that's not what you want. You think you know what you want, but you don't. And oh, I did skip over one of these. So we have NCLEX stuff. Let's see if I can get back up to NCLEX. And I'm probably saying it wrong. So one of the, oh, and of course I scroll right past it. Net advantage. Okay. Why am I not seeing NCLEX? Alright. Well, we did have two NCLEX databases. One for, I want to say pharmacy, and the other one for optometry, possibly. Anyway, they're two different genres, and it only grabbed like one of the NCLEXs to search up, which I was kind of like, well, they're both there, and if you're stripping, well, maybe it is taking stuff from column G. Maybe I should trust it more. Also, the human, later in the day, got kind of burnt out around the P's, because this is generally where my brain falls off. So I couldn't tell, or maybe I was just getting confused myself over whether or not it like seemed to be getting worse over time. And I considered giving it an example in my prompt of how I actually write my database descriptions, and then I'm like, no, I'm curious to see what it does without like trying to have it mimic my interesting little voice that I use for those. So yeah, and the Pioneer, this is like actually straight up because that is our local paper, and we fund that. So we just keep continuing. Nothing particularly exciting. I mentioned pointing out Referencia Latina because I have a very specific and dual language description for that. But the other fun thing that I was adding to my descriptions, I wasn't doing nearly so much before, was like the update frequency, at least for the ones that had it. And it wasn't like more than once, it was relatively frequently. And so you can see again, we skip down to RX Select because we don't want to deal with, in this particular case, I think it was my historical newspapers, which all have the same gosh darn description. That's what they're going to have. Because I don't really need to edit that. I just need to leave it alone. And security management practice is another one where I have a very specific description, although this convinced me to take out financial. So small edits, small changes. Yeah, the flesh is slow and the flesh takes thought, but this did help a little bit, at least in terms of the speed of looking stuff up. So I'd let it, for each tenth, I think it took about 2 minutes, if that. So I just sit and let it chug for a second. Trying to see if there's anything else on here I want to point out. There's okay, I'm sorry. It's down stat pearls. I'm looking up for NCLEX. So stat pearls, MBDHE, stat pearls, NCLEX. So in theory, it would grab both of these, and it did. So I don't know what I'm thinking. Because I thought for a second it was like, wait, I only searched up one. And maybe I was just scrolling fast yesterday. So yeah, 2900, 780. So they are different. My bad. And activism, text tree, which, yeah, there's some that because I didn't excerpt the ones that were just using C whatever in their description on my column C where the descriptions were in the spreadsheet I gave it. Yeah, I should have told it to skip some of those, but I didn't, so it generated them anyway. And text tree is one of those where it's like, go see engineering workbench, although maybe not because they're being jerks. I don't know why we have a customer service rep because he never applies to us. Anyway, sorry, side rant. History and context, Lexi drug, vision site, yeah. So all this just keeps on churning. Do the final entries, woot woot woot, and then it's like, do you want me to compile these into a document? And I was like, I probably should have had it do that instead of having me go back and forth between this and two other pieces of software, namely the spreadsheet I have in Teams and the software where these are actually hosted. But again, I'm a weak little flesh puppet and I like hand editing the stuff I wrote. I'm weirdly attached to it. And also, if this, exported the database descriptions, you could theoretically in a larger library spend more time manipulating the spreadsheet or getting AI to manipulate the spreadsheet and then feed that back in to do updates on your databases in the database A to Z list software. But I'm slow. We small library. Not a lot of people, not a lot of tech. So we make do, and it works. So yeah, that's how I went with Copilot. Would I do it again? Probably. It was about the same amount of time. Possibly saved me maybe an hour in terms of the looking stuff up. And slightly less confusion because some years I would go in alphabetical order and other years I would try to go by vendor platform and do all the big three first and then go back and get all the oddballs. That was a little more chaotic in my opinion, but then you end up with the land of 10,000 tabs where you're like, okay, I got to keep 3 of these open in case we need to bounce to this vendor, and then we need to keep that open, then we need to check there, and yeah, the only other thing I might consider doing if I did it again was to revise the prompt to tell it to look at a few specific colleges A to Z lists. Just because I ain't gonna lie, I'm an old school cataloger. I have cribbed slash stolen slash, straight up uplifted database descriptions from other libraries because it's like, oh yeah, we both are on the same contract through the same consortium and you got a good description. Why should I think about this twice? Just old school cataloger thoughts. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you found this at least thought provoking. I don't know what I'm going to try to use AI next for, but I'll definitely keep you in the loop when I do.